and at the moment, I'm looking after their IT operations, and we have a target to make their IT infrastructure as a backbone for the organization. And by that, there is a whole new set of challenges that education industry has faced during pandemic. So trying to address those as well, and being able to provide services to our customers who are actually children and parents. So we have a fraternity of around 65,000 students. So we are trying to connect them through technology, imparting the education and their examinations and all the communication that are there. So in a nutshell, that is it.
Thank you. So, I'll pick up on a few points that both of you talked about. And when one thinks of IT and IS governance, a lot of the connotation that it's a slow process. And I was having an offline conversation with Mudasser Saab where he said that it was a thing कि हाँ जब funds होंगे extra तो कर लेंगे. When work is slower, we can put our efforts and resources and time and money into it. But no longer is that an assumption anymore because of course everything that's gone on in the world in the last 1.5 years. So having pehle samajhte the कि there will be a lot of loops that we'll have to pass through, and that's scary for any organization, large or small, in this age of digital transformation. But now both of you being in this position of leading departments or leading the digitization efforts or leading the cybersecurity wing, how does this allow your technology teams to move faster? Mudasser Saab, aapne bhi mujhe bataya in your introduction also that your experience has been in different verticals. So if we take a quick look back at how that's been as you develop these, when we're talking about rethinking IT governance. So when we're talking about agility, we're talking about innovation. So how has that obviously developed over the years, and what's been your biggest learning in the last 1.5 years?
Sure. As you mentioned that we were discussing that IT governance and frameworks and everything apart from the regulated industry was a luxury. It was supposed to be that it is something this is nice to have but may not be must have. And in terms of Pakistan, what I have experienced, my first 10 years are out of Pakistan, then next 10 years I am in Pakistan. So working in Pakistan, typically in manufacturing side, people were more of the having an approach towards हमारा data किसने use कर लेना है, we are very unique, all that type of things that you can hear. So actually, how the things have transformed during let's say during last 10 years is being a shift from on-premise and hardcore back-end softwares and solutions to more customer-centric and experience-centric products as we started adopting them in different verticals, being in whether in manufacturing or in service sector. So people thought that what is the question came in that who is the owner of this information when it is being transmitted? Who is going to use this information, and how can I protect my information, especially when I talk about education sector and when I talk about a business which is really easy to copy, the rules, regulations, the standard operating procedures, all these type of documentation and all these type of frameworks are the unique selling proposition and their competitive advantage against your competition. So, as per my learning is concerned, if we as soon as we started moving from on-prem, very locked out network-centric applications and utilization towards a more global perspective of things and software as a service and platform as a service and service architecture, I came to understand that more and more we adopt to the services and solutions which are actually ready with the frameworks is the way forward to ensure that agility and innovation is catered. So, for example, Office 365 can be a very good example. So when we move from on-prem Office, MS Exchange necessarily to Office 365, it came up with a plethora of services and a lot of tools that we can actually adapt to, utilize, and ensure that we are compliant with all the rules that are to be there. For example, it provides us an excellent administration console where we can actually look at the, we can comply with GDPR. And although we are in Pakistan, but if you start complying with the European GDPR rules, you actually cover a lot of ground. So these are the methodologies that we started adopting without involving a lot of business hue and cry and a lot of business people. But if we are talking about solution development, so governance rules have to be something which is part and parcel of their everyday life. For example, if we are following agile methodology, so agile methodology, if we are having everyday moods and every second day we are having review meeting, so we need to review the governance rules there and then, rather than waiting for a whole lot of development done and then applying the rules on that. That is, these are the two methodologies, two-pronged strategy that I have seen working well for us in terms of adoption and in terms of promoting agility and innovation, at the same time ensuring that a framework is being followed and governance is at in action.
Thank you very much. Kashif Saab, is there something that you'd like to add to this? Because of course, aapne bhi kaha ki, you've been in the industry for 20 years, but I believe that when you started back then, to koi concept nahi tha cyber security ka. Now thankfully, of course, a lot more organizations other than banks also are moving towards this. So setting up that structure. So we'll start with setting up the IT or IS governance as a framework, and then move on to the deeper details. That how do we how do you implement a governance model that uses appropriate guardrails, and also because I'd love to get Kashif Saab's input here, but also safeguard this for risk management, right? Because you were explaining, even an institution like an educational institute is also spread across the country, right? So you have multiple branches. You're looking at a remote workforce even before this pandemic. So how does that enable adaptability and speed? And then of course it increases your portfolio by multiple, I think, challenges as well as opportunities also.
Yes. So actually, I think the answer pretty much is within the question that you are asking, the guarding rails. So it is more to do with the perspective that there is change of paradigm actually, and the new paradigm is that we need to understand that what are the three components that need to be addressed. So there has to be new business models. There has to be a new mode of education. We need to educate people, and third one is awareness. So so security part is all about awareness, that why we are doing it, why it is important, how it relates to us. So this is the awareness part. Then educating people that why and how we can actually make ourselves more protected, and how we can adapt these things that will actually turn into us a practice. Once the thing becomes a practice and a habit, it automatically infuses into the ecosystem. So usually what we have been using as a key to that is that we are trying to devise the rules in form of boundaries. So we are basically trying to define the boundaries, that what we can do and what we cannot do, and whatever we design has to rely within the boundaries. And for that, all these frameworks, they really work for us. And obviously these frameworks, in my opinion, we cannot adopt these frameworks as is. They have to be modified and they have to be customized, or sometimes we have to leave certain components out, which may be a hindrance or counterproductive as compared to the benefits they can bring in. So if we have to be very vigilant in terms of the rules that we adopt for the governance, that should not be a hindrance. Rather, they should be a support, and people should not feel that we are when we are applying any framework or any IT governance rule, we are trying to stop them from doing things, and that is very important. And one thing that has worked along with this methodology is how much we can decentralize our operations, and how much we can make our branches or the people who are working remotely or connecting remotely with the head office or the regional offices more in control, and so making them more autonomous, making giving more and more power to them to do their operations by themselves, but being in the same safeguard rules.
So on this part, sir, that you talked about, how have uh, there's a big issue of IT and information security investments providing value to organization. I think before COVID, our business cases had to be stronger because you needed to tell organizations, big, small, large, any vertical, actually, unko explain karna ke why they need to be on this journey, which is not just a couple of days or weeks or maybe months, it's much longer. How has that, of course, changed for you? And then, adding on to that, and I hope we can get Kashif Saab's input also, that how have you tackled this in providing that value versus the investment that's gone in and that continues to go?
So, yeah, like I mentioned earlier, it's more to do with making people aware that what we are heading against. If I have a paper file or somewhere in my cupboard versus if I am transmitting the data over the internet and receiving it and saving it soft form somewhere, and so we had to have certain test cases, certain examples that had to be quoted to the management in terms of education sector I'm talking about. So we had to show them that how the things can turn out to be if not controlled at the source. So these type of awareness sessions have to be done. People need to be educated. They are to be abreast with that how and when the information is becoming counterproductive for us rather than having benefit for us. So and then obviously secure communication channels, why they are required, how they can work for us. So it's all about, I think it's all about educating and making people aware, along with certain relevant examples that XYZ can be the consequence of if we are not protecting our data, or what kind of data breaches can happen. For example, if you are part of a network and there is a DDoS attack and you are not a 24/7 operation, so people say, okay, no problem, you can shut it down and make it up again. So and for example, if there is a malware attack, we had a malware attack not recently, some months ago, and so when we actually dig down, we were not very secured at that time, we were just planning our so what happened was, we came to know that there were certain uh, malware that were injected into the certain machines which were generating the traffic for bit mining. So people were always complaining about slowness of the machine, slowness of the internet, slowness of the systems, but they were not realizing that actually their machine is being used by something else and doing for something which is not even they are not even aware of. So these things. And then in the security perspective, in terms of the security, in city schools, we have a widespread network of around 150 branches across Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is, the branches are closed for the major part of pandemic. So there are only certain guards there, certain administration staff, may not be anyone else over there. So what happens if your machines in the computer labs are being abused? You will never know. Someday FIA or some regulatory agency can come knocking at your door for any reason.
And of course, dusri cheez, of course, like we talked about earlier also, is that the fact that all these students and teachers, everyone's online, right? So in your case, the distributed workforce is every household that has a child or a teacher or a parent from city school. So I think your network automatically becomes all those people and those multiple devices. Somebody will connect from their phone, somebody from their tablet, somebody from their desktop, and they will access either the server for remote access of their availability of him. So I think that brings a bigger challenge to your portfolio. I'd just like to understand also in more detail, you talked about the cybersecurity element, of course, and a lot of that, as you rightly said, comes from awareness, right? But how much of it is like how closely do you work with someone? So are you heading? I'd like to understand this more. Are you sort of responsible for the IT information security roadmap also under your role, or does that vary? Is that a separate
Yes.
function?
No, no. I am trying to inculcate the information security awareness into the organization that this
Okay,
is a vertical that should be addressed separately. And
critical.
at the moment,
Yeah.
I am trying to devise a governance roadmap in terms of all type of policies, procedures. Obviously, all these policies and procedures in the past were more directed towards protecting yourself, your data center, your machines. Now it's about more and more because the information is somewhere out there where you need to protect it and you need to communicate it securely, and you need to ensure that it's end-to-end secure and is not being breached. So
Absolutely, and I think that remains critical. And I think as you also expand within the organization, more and more people are coming in, more and more devices. People want multiple devices to be available, to be connected. So I think the challenges only increase. And as we are equipping or getting onto that pace of innovation, so are people who are obviously injecting malware or are on the other side of things. So
yes,
I think it's a challenge on both sides. I'd also like to talk a little bit about, there's a big push that's been in the industry about IT function to become a business function, of course, because
yes,
that's what's driven growth. And as I said earlier on as well, it was something that was considered like one department, which was, just responsible to make sure everybody's device is working, everybody's internet is working, it's all good, it's everything smooth. Now it's a lot more. It is business continuity which lies in your hand. It is and any institute or any organization, large and small, as we said, all enterprises need that business continuity to be enabled by IT. So how has that evolved in the last? It should have evolved earlier, in our opinion, but anyhow, it took a pandemic to, I think, make people and organizations realize this. So how has that been for you?
yes, absolutely. This evolution has, I think, is more evident for last 5 years and 6 years or so. As people started moving towards more and more application-based economy, service, software as a service platforms, or platform as a service being available, and
Yeah.
so even the business user was more and more keen to adopt and get that experience. So everything actually, I think, emerged from the experience. So it was all about that. What if I can use Facebook and Twitter like this? Why not my business application can work like that? So
Yeah.
the comparison was always there, and that was an uphill task to actually satisfy people by saying this is something else and this is something else. You need to draw the comparison and all that stuff. So actually, the evolution of the role of IT professional has become from business enablers to transformation agents actually. So we were enabling people, we were providing with everything, and they were using it. Now we are basically transformation agents, and when we are transformation agents, we actually work more closely. Although we were working very closely with the businesses, but we need to work more closely with the businesses, tell them that and understand their business needs and their business cases in today's world, and how we can add value leveraging all these platform economies, all these opportunities that are there to grow their business further. So for example, if we are talking about let's suppose maintenance. So at the moment I know of several cases and several companies within Pakistan who are on a maintenance agreement with some organization who are sitting in Germany or America or somewhere else in the world, and they are remotely basically not only providing the services but also they are maintaining their machines. So as then obviously the next part is RPA. So when we are talking about robotic process automation and M2M, so all that stuff needs to have a business case to it, and how actually technology can provide them with the leverage, which actually can enhance the overall business proposition for them. For example, lowering the breakdowns through predictive maintenance, So all these things are there, and obviously it has to have a framework that it should follow. And those frameworks need to be part and parcel of these platforms and services that you adopt. So the key is that whatever we adopt, and in interest of agility, we need to adopt certain things. Like I gave an example of Office 365. So Office 365 comes along with a lot of security tools, a lot of different tools that we can leverage, and we can say information classification, or the rules related to anything related to financial information, legal information, safeguarding of your legal documentation, and it provides some really good features in it. Similarly, there are orchestrators that we can use who that allow us to securely transmit information and ensure that the information is end-to-end encrypted, or the information is stored in a way which is secure. So I think more and more as we go along with this situation that we are facing, more and more innovation will come into play to leverage the technology to gain business growth and business advantages.
And you're right, for a lot of it's the new business as usual for organizations, whether they're digital natives or traditional companies. That's how the world has been working for the last at least 2 years. We've seen that this is what it is. Companies need an operating model which can constantly change, and not change, but also remain stable and or remain robust. And I think that's where the responsibility of an agile working or innovative environment relies on. So I think that's where the role of a CIO has become much more critical.
पहले तो समझने की जरूरत है कि गवर्नेंस है क्या बुनियादी तौर पे ना. इट्स गवर्नेंस बेसिकली अ बैलेंस बिटवीन परफॉर्मेंस एंड कन्फॉर्मेंस, राइट. आप डेली बेसिस पे काम करते हो, आपको काम दिया जाता है, सुबह से लेकर शाम तक आप वो काम करते हो, काम को डिलीवर करते हो, दैट इज व्हाट परफॉर्मेंस, राइट. गवर्नेंस इस बारे में ये कहती है कि इट हैज टू बी बैलेंस विद कन्फॉर्मेंस एज वेल. अब कन्फॉर्मेंस क्या, कन्फॉर्मेंस वो जो बात की फारूक ने स्टैंडर्ड्स के हवाले से, गाइडलाइंस के हवाले से, गवर्नेंस आई मीन आईएसओ के हवाले से, और दूसरे स्टैंडर्ड लाइक एजिलिटी के हवाले से, इनोवेशन के हवाले से. तो वही चीज गवर्नेंस के पैरामीटर्स में बैलेंस्ड आती है जो दोनों चीजों को साथ लेके चलती है, राइट. इट हैज टू बी बैलेंस्ड फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल. दूसरी चीज, गवर्नेंस के कुछ अपने पिलर्स हैं, कुछ अपने कंपोनेंट्स हैं, लाइक वो बात करता है कम्युनिकेशन की, ट्रांसपेरेंसी की, वो बात करता है रिस्क की ऑप्टिमाइजेशन की, वो बात करता है बेनिफिट रियलाइजेशन की, एंड देन सो ऑन सो फोर्थ. In our case, in banking industry, we have to follow those given rules by State Bank of Pakistan, one of the regulators in Pakistan, right? चूंकि वो रेगुलेटर है तो उसने अपनी गवर्नेंस के कुछ फ्रेमवर्क भी बनाए हुए हैं, रिस्क का अपना बनाया हुआ है, गवर्नेंस का अपना एक बनाया हुआ है, तो इवेंचुअली वी हैव टू फॉलो दैट एज वेल. बट वी हैव टू गेट थिंग्स बैलेंस्ड एज वेल, क्योंकि एज अ बैंकिंग इंडस्ट्री हमारा काम कस्टमर को, आम लोगों को सर्विसेज देना है और उनके फीडबैक्स को ऑलवेज वेलकम करना है. तो बिल्कुल इन्होंने सही कहा, ऐसा नहीं हो सकता कि हम ब्लाइंडली स्टैंडर्ड्स को फॉलो करें और कस्टमर के फीडबैक को ज्यादा फोकस ना दें. इट कांट बी लाइक दैट, इट शुड नॉट बी लाइक दैट. हमारे लिए सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट चीज कस्टमर का फीडबैक होता है. मिसाल के तौर पे अगर एटीएम में कोई मसला है तो इट इज ऑन अ प्रायोरिटी बेसिस, इट हैज टू बी टेकन ऑन प्रायोरिटी बेसिस. यस, स्टैंडर्ड्स बात करता है, आईएसओ बात करता है सिक्योरिटी की, सिक्योरिटी की दूसरे स्टैंडर्ड्स की 27001 है, इस तरह के बेशुमार स्टैंडर्ड्स है जिसमें बात की जाती है कि बट एजिलिटी में बहुत सारी चीजें लाइक एजाइल का पहला रूल ही यही है कि कस्टमर फीडबैक. तो वी हैव टू गेट थिंग्स बैलेंस्ड इन दैट केस एज वेल. अब इसमें होना क्या चाहिए, इसमें यस, प्रोसेस ऑलवेज बी देयर, प्रोसेस शुड ऑलवेज बी देयर, राइट, बट इट हैज टू बी ऑटोमेटेड. अगर प्रोसेस ऑटोमेशन को फॉलो नहीं कर रहा होगा, ऑटोमेटेड नहीं होगा, तो कभी भी गवर्नेंस सही तरीके से स्ट्रांग नहीं हो सकती. तो इन सिंपलेस्ट वर्ड, इट हैज टू बी लाइक डेटा ड्रिवन गवर्नेंस. कि अगर सीईओ या सीआईओ बैठ के डिसीजन लेते हैं और वो 10 लोगों को बुला के बात करते हैं, इट शुड नॉट बी लाइक दैट. इट हैज टू बी लाइक, it has to be it has to be data driven, it has to be information driven. In one click, like in dashboard, एक आम सी छोटी सी अगर आप गाड़ी लें तो वहां पे भी डैशबोर्ड का कॉन्सेप्ट है. सिंगल क्लिक, इट हैज टू बी क्या कहना है, हेल्पफुल टू द सी लेवल पीपल. तो ये एक ओवरऑल चीज है, इसको समझने के लिए आपको गवर्नेंस की बुनियादियात, एंड देन जाहिर जब हमें प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट का पता होगा देन वी कैन गो फॉरवर्ड विद द सॉल्यूशन एज वेल. एंड सॉल्यूशन सिर्फ ये नहीं है कि हमने प्रोसेस बना दिया और उसको शेल्फ कर दिया, नथिंग लाइक दैट. इट हैज टू बी ऑटोमेटेड एज वेल बेस्ड ऑन कस्टमर फीडबैक. तो आईटी में एक बहुत अच्छा एक टर्म यूज होती है स्पेशली इन सॉफ्टवेयर डेवलपमेंट. जब से ये मोबाइल ऐप आया है, स्मार्टफोन आया है, उसे कहते हैं यूआई यूएक्स. ठीक है, यूजर एक्सपीरियंस. तो अगर आप बेशुमार स्टैंडर्ड्स अप्लाई करते हैं बट यूजर एक्सपीरियंस इज बैड और जीरो, तो यू समझो स्टैंडर्ड आपकी किसी काम के नहीं है. तो इट हैज टू बी बैलेंस लाइक दैट, राइट. तो आई एम सॉरी, अगर कुछ और रहेगा तो मुझसे पूछ ले, मैं आपको फौरन बता देता हूँ.
Gee, I think we were just ecstatic that we can finally hear you and get your input. So we were just quietly listening. And sir, very quickly, I'd like your comments on, जो हमने बात की थी पीछे कि, there are guardrails for risk management. It needs to be deployed by IT. It needs to be deployed by IT security, but it needs to be embedded into the organization. And उसमें सारे functions का काम आ जाता है. वो CHRO का भी काम, मतलब HR function भी होगा, उसमें financial function भी होगा, उसमें दूसरे भी होंगे. How are you keeping up with that speed and adaptability? Because this is something जो हम बात कर रहे थे, I don't know if you caught it, that जिस तेजी से हम innovation या agility की तरफ जा रहे हैं, so are the people who are attacking or potentially harming organizations in multiple ways, right? So how do we keep up with that pace?
इसमें सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट चीज होती है कि आपका डिजाइन क्या है, आपके इदारे का, आपके बिजनेस का डिजाइन इज वेरी मच इम्पोर्टेंट. गोरा क्या करता है, सिंपली गोरा जब बिजनेस को एस्टेब्लिश करने लगता है, कंपनी को एस्टेब्लिश करने लगता है, तो उस वक्त एक डिजाइन सेट कर लेता है. यहाँ डिजाइन का मतलब ये है कि आपका इदारे का बुनियादी डिजाइन क्या है, ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ दैट आपने लोग किस किस्म के हायर करने हैं. अगर लोगों का डिजाइन, लोगों का माइंडसेट एजिलिटी पे बिलीव नहीं करता होगा तो आप कभी भी गवर्नेंस को सही तरीके से सिस्टम के अंदर इम्बेड नहीं कर सकते. ठीक है, रिस्क भी तो गवर्नेंस के अंदर ही आता है ना. रिस्क का वन ऑफ द पिलर्स, गवर्नेंस का वन ऑफ द पिलर्स इज रिस्क आल्सो, राइट. रिस्क ऑप्टिमाइजेशन जिसे टेक्निकल टर्म में. एज अ बैंक वाइड आपकी रिस्क मैनेजमेंट हो रही है, फिर विद इन कंपनी और विद इन आईटी हो रही है. आईटी के अंदर भी विद इन डिपार्टमेंट, विद इन टीम, विद इन प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट ऑफिस, और पीएमओ के अंदर प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजर खुद भी उसको कर रहा है, रिस्क मैनेजर भी खुद कर रहा है उसके अंदर. ये सब चीजें हैं, बिल्कुल ठीक है, अच्छी बात है, किताबों में लिखी है, लोग उसको फॉलो करते हैं, बिलीव करते हैं. बट इवेंचुअली आपकी जो इदारे का डिजाइन है, लोगों का जो माइंडसेट है, वो क्या है? क्या आप ये सब चीजें बाय हुक और क्रुक करवा रहे हैं, तो वो तो फिर रिएक्टिव मोड में चल रहा है. बेसिकली अगर आपने ये चीज बिलीव कर ली कि यस हमें एजाइल को फॉलो करना है, तो एजिलिटी खुद अपने अंदर गवर्नेंस के फंडामेंटल्स को एम्बेड की हुई है. मैं आपको 2-3 मिसालें दे देता हूँ. एजिलिटी के अंदर एक बात, डेली 15 मिनट की स्टैंड अप होती है जिसे हम स्क्रम मीटिंग कहते हैं. तो वो क्या है? काइंड ऑफ अ गवर्नेंस. आपने क्या किया, आपने क्या करना है, और क्या इम्पेडिमेंट्स हैं. ये 3 चीजें, 3 सवाल हैं उसके अंदर. इस तरह के बेशुमार ऐसी सेरेमनीज हैं एजाइल के अंदर जो गवर्नेंस के रूल्स को फॉलो करती, बुनियादियात. बट उसके लिए लोगों का डिजाइन माइंडसेट भी वैसा ही होना चाहिए. जबरदस्ती आप करवाएंगे तो वन ऑफ द केस में आपको शायद एडवांटेज मिल जाए, बट कंसिस्टेंट बेसिस पे, लॉन्ग टर्म बेसिस पे आपको उसका कोई फायदा सच होगा नहीं. तो ये 2-3 चीजें जो मैं समझता हूँ, बीइंग पार्ट ऑफ आईटी सिंस लॉन्ग, इट हैज टू बी लाइक दैट.
So I think one more thing that I've also understood is that even being in positions of influence within your organizations, especially in the departments that both of you had, you have to push for that implementation of a frictionless model, which will change the whole company to be more adaptable to constant, market changes. As आपने कहा कि एक framework बनता है, then उसको obviously implement करते हैं, but then obviously it has to be constantly adapted to also. If I were to quickly ask both of you, what are some elements, that you have identified as critical when it comes to responsive organization operating model? Because we are talking about developing frameworks and implementation, which has been a primary responsibility for both of you in your positions. So if I can get a quick response on that.
One thing that has always worked for me during last 2 decades has been the involvement of technology representation in the business process decision making. So that is something that is very fundamental to push forward. Like Kashif said very accurately, okay, it's not about that what you want to do. It's all about what people can actually absorb and adopt. So हमने क्या करना है वो एक चीज है, what actually they are made of and what they are, the culture of the organization actually. So it is actually a shift, it's a business transformation process in altogether. And that's why I think I was just reading a Gartner study yesterday, which said that the CIO role is going to transform into a COO role within 2-3 years now. By 2025, they actually claimed. So I can understand what they're coming from. So whenever we need any adoption, we need the buy-in of the people at the top. We need to be part of, as a technology team, we need to be part of the decision-making process, so that people, system, practical, these three things, three P's should be addressed there. And then rather than they decide upon something, we'd say something else, and end of the day, there is a problem in convergence. So I think adoption and bringing that culture starts from very beginning of business process alignment is coming from the point where we are making decisions, so that IT is part of it. So and it will actually bring in seamless integration of technology with the operations.
And research really backs this claim, and it says that an adaptable IT and IS department cannot have a CIO or a CISO who is buried under like 3 or 4 layers under the board, because that's just how important it's become. Ji Kashif, can we hear from you?
Please, yeah, he's right, absolutely right, Mudasser. कुछ चीजें इसमें मैं ऐड करना चाहूँगा. एक जमाना था जब टेक्निकली चीजें डिस्कस होती थी, इंडस्ट्री की मैं बात कर रहा हूँ, लाइक इन आवर केस बैंकिंग इंडस्ट्री. देखें, टेक्निकली चीजें तो वेंडर बेस्ड मोस्टली जा चुकी हुई है, अब तक बहुत सारी चीजें जा चुकी हुई हैं. To me, CIO is a kind of a person. He should be like, adding values to the business.
Absolutely.
Right? अगर CIO सिर्फ टेक्निकल बुनियादों पे हायर होगा तो उसका एज सच इदारे को कोई फायदा नहीं होने लगा. सही है. उसके लिए उसको बिजनेस का, जिस बिजनेस में वो काम कर रहा है, जिस इदारे में वो काम कर रहा है, लाइक इन बैंकिंग इंडस्ट्री, उसकी बिजनेस, वो क्या बिजनेस में वैल्यूज ऐड कर सकता है, वो उसको पता होना चाहिए. हम एट टाइम्स टेक्निकली इतना ज्यादा ओवर थॉट या ओवर थिंक कर जाते हैं कि हम बिजनेस वैल्यूज को शायद भूल जाते हैं, शायद उसको निगलेक्ट कर लेते हैं. तो टेक्नोलॉजी itself is nothing. When it comes adding values to the business, yes, it has everything within that, right? Most of the time, if you go against the technology and knowingly or unknowingly forgetting the business values getting added or not, it will definitely create a fuss in the organization. So CIO का not only technical but also business के हवाले से अच्छा strong background होना चाहिए. I mean, I would say 60-40 or maybe 70-30. 70 business knowledge and then 30 technical knowledge as well. तो जैसे कहते हैं ना, इदारे का सरबराह, घर का सरबराह के जो माइंडसेट होगा वही डाउन द लाइन लोगों में ट्रांसफर हो रहा होगा. तो फिर वो अपने डायरेक्ट रिपोर्टीज को, डेवलपमेंट का हेड, पीएमओ का हेड, गवर्नेंस का हेड, सब में अपनी चीजों को इनकलकेट कर रहा होगा. तो फिर डाउन द लाइन उसका बेनिफिट आपको डेफिनेटली यू विल बी गेटिंग द बेनिफिट आउट ऑफ इट. यस.
Thank you. I think with that, I'd just like to sum up, that both of you have said that, modern IT and IS governance model, it embeds risk assessment into its decision-making processes. There are a lot of workflow tools that can automate adherence to, rules and regulations, whether you are working in a regulated industry or not. There are multiple tools that are available. So CIOs and CISOs today, more than anything, they need to focus on driving business, but even if it means, splitting off a part of the position that deals with IT operations, cost optimization, vendor management, uptime, and business continuity. I think that remains the central function. With that, I think in the interest of time, I'd just like to see if there's any closing comment from both my participants today.
Sure. Actually, just summing up what we discussed, I think we are talking about that if it is IT governance or anything related to technology, it has to add value to the organization in terms of bottom line or top line. So it has to be part and parcel of the way we live. So just like I remember, just one last point, I remember when I was working in a lot of manufacturing, there was always written, safety is everyone's responsibility. So technology adoption is everyone's responsibility today as well. That's right.
Thank you so much. Ji Kashif, have any closing comments before we?
Yeah, to me, governance to be taught, governance to be advised, governance to be a part of course outline, हमारी इंडस्ट्री में, लोकल इंस्टीट्यूशंस में गवर्नेंस को नहीं पढ़ाया जाता। सिक्योरिटी अब पढ़ाना शुरू की है। गवर्नेंस में आपको सिर्फ वही लोग मिलते हैं जो पैशनेट होते हैं, जो अपने तौर पे एफर्ट करके सर्टिफिकेशंस कर चुके हुए होते हैं। बट एज सच यूनिवर्सिटीज के अंदर डिग्री में कोई कोर्स आउटलाइन का गवर्नेंस का कोई पार्ट ही नहीं है, एंड दैट इज literally unfortunate. और अगले 10, 15, maybe 20 years, you will be seeing governance by leaps and bounds. I'm done.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of this wonderful session. It's a bit unfortunate that we got very little time with Kashif Saab today, but this is technology. This is something that we live with, each one of us, every day, and it's been challenging for all of us. But I think what comes out of it is great knowledge and great insight. So we're thankful to both our guests today, Kashif Siddiqui from JS Bank and Mudasser Farooq from the City Schools. This is Aksa Tariq. We're signing off from CXO Masters Academy. Please stay tuned. Our website will be launched shortly, where we will have all these engaging sessions put out with great insights from people, from industry leaders like the ones we had here today. This is us signing out. Thank you very much, and Allah Hafiz.
Thank you. Allah Hafiz. Thank you very
Allah
much.
Hafiz.